There's certain conversations that no one wants to have with their parents.
Yeah, one of the hardest things is telling them they might not be able to do something that they've done their entire life.
Yeah, like driving, living alone, making certain decisions on their own. Today, we're talking about how to have these conversations in a way that actually helps.
Welcome to The Gray Take. So today we're joined by Donna, Cella, and Jodi Jackson. Both are registered nurses and case managers at ElderCare. It's an organization that advocates for older adults and their families, helping to guide them through the care planning journey.
Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having
We're
us.
so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, this
Thank
is going to
you.
be a great conversation.
Yes.
Well, let's get started, Donna, with you. How did you get into this work?
So I was working at the bedside in Naples, Florida.
Okay.
And I don't know what you know about Naples, but there's a very snowbird population
And what is the bedside? Is that a...
and a hospital.
Okay.
Like
And so
bedside.
I was working.
Oh, excuse me.
as a
I thought it
bedside
was
nurse.
a place.
Oh,
the
no, it was a
bedside.
bedside nurse. I was working in the ICU, and families would fly in for these emergencies,
Right.
and then they would have to go back to their families. And I thought to myself, who is advocating for these people that are here and trying to recover from something, catastrophic? And
Right, when their
so-
family member leaves
has
and
to
there
leave.
they are.
Right. And so I found care management. And when I found it, I just thought, this is it. This is what I have been called to do. And so I started a company in Naples, Florida. Loved it. I actually had my mom, who's a nurse, working for me
Oh,
at the
wow.
time, and had 9 nurses. And then started our adoption journey and ended up selling the company, thinking I was done. But, God had another plan. And so here I am bringing back ElderCare and have an amazing business partner with Jodi.
How was it supervising your mom in a nursing position?
They called her the Energizer Bunny. And so she was wonderful. And she was always my favorite nurse. So it was a good pairing because I could trust her and I knew what she was going to do. And it was lovely. It was lovely to be able to share that part of her career and my career together.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I know.
Well, how about you, Jodi? Tell us about your path a little bit.
I was working at a local CCRC here in Brentwood.
What's the
and
CCRC?
That is a continuing community retirement community. I don't know the exact acronym, but basically it's a community that has a facility such as they have independent living, assisted living, and then the skilled nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on the independent living side, and there were these 2 ladies that had a company, a care management company, that kept coming in and advocating for their clients. They were taking them to doctor's appointments, and then they would report back to me as like the head nurse over the independent living. And I was one day thinking, like, I just want to do that. Like, it seems like fun. And so that's how I got into it. They approached me and said, "We're hiring if you know anyone." And I said, "Okay, I'll keep that in mind for my friends." And a few weeks later, they called and said, "No, we met you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I said, "I'll do it on a trial basis," because I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And after a few months, I was like, I'm ready to go full time. And so I have been doing care management since 2010. And I was with a small company here that is much like ElderCare that was bought out by a corporate company.
Okay.
I'm not a corporate girl. So it was just a God thing when Donna met me right before I was about to leave and said, "How are you doing?" And the tears flowed and I said, "Not so good."
Were you guys friends before, or did
No.
you just cross paths in work?
Cross
Cross
paths
paths.
Okay.
through a mutual, there's a nurse that works for us that
Okay.
I was going to hire at one time, and it didn't work out. And so she worked for Donna and she introduced us. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. She
Yeah.
completes me in every way.
Wow.
She does.
Normally we show up in the same clothes,
Right,
like
it's
colors.
really true.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, you
That's
guys are
really great.
giving me the warm and fuzzies
We'll text
today.
each other, and it's like the same thing at the same time. It could be a random thought, and it's the same thing. It's kind of weird sometimes.
It is.
Oh, I think
Fun.
that's tremendous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Great partnership.
Mhm.
Knowing when your aging loved one might need assistance with something, especially they've been doing, their whole lives can be really difficult because assessing somebody's ability to drive or live alone can be relative, right? And so how does it make it more challenging for families and caregivers to know when to step in? Donna, what do you think?
So it's a great question. And as care managers, our job is to, as Jodi calls us, professional daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And so our job is to come alongside families and help them to navigate aging and healthcare, because aging is hard and healthcare is harder.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to navigate and to know the ins and outs. But for family members, they're out there, first of all, dealing with maybe the shock of having a chronic illness in the family,
Or there was like an event. There was like
yes, a fall,
yeah.
or some kind of significant event. And nobody goes into caregiving with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You are thrown into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes very hard to navigate. How do I take care of me and how do I take care of them? And so when we're meeting with families, I often, especially someone with dementia, which is a really hard, long road for the caregiver, and I will say to them, I care deeply about your loved one that has dementia, but I'm actually more concerned about you.
Gosh, that's
I mean,
amazing.
I know.
Are you just having like we're both as
Where were
caregivers
you?
on different levels, but we're both a little gobsmacked.
Yeah, no one was asking us that.
I would have just
Yeah.
hugged your neck.
Actually, yeah, I do remember a couple of people in my life for sure who were very intentional about checking on me and caring for me, and it meant the world. And so to have somebody like proactively from the beginning say these things to you, and
Right.
especially when you add like all the family dynamics and stuff like that, like you're coming in from the outside with an objective point of view. And I mean,
Well, it's cool,
what a
that you said
godsend.
that. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of this podcast is
Mhm.
we want caregivers to know, we're kind of focusing on them.
Right.
Not kind of, we are.
Mhm.
Right.
But focusing on them. And it seems in the caregiving journey, a lot of times people will sort of come upon that later. Like
Yeah.
you jump in as a caregiver, you're doing all this. And then, when you're about to, like crumble, then you're like, oh gosh, I got to maybe
Yeah.
take a break or take care
Well,
of
the
myself
statistics are staggering. I don't know if you all are aware of these statistics, but 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people that are a caregiver of someone in the U.S. So
That-
do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you think about churches, employers, people out there, because 70% of them are working full time.
Mhm.
And so you are working full time. You probably have kids at home that you're juggling taking care of them. And now you're trying to manage maybe an aging parent
Yeah.
who, you didn't really have that on your radar, And so it's called the sandwich generation for a reason, because they are sandwiched and still trying to get, and still trying to have a career.
Well, I would say it was on my radar for sure because I was very young when my mom was diagnosed. But even having it on my radar was overwhelming because I was that. I had a full-time job. I had kids at home, all the things. So,
And that's one of the most underrepresented too, are children who are caring for an adult.
Exactly. There's a
They're trying to
lot.
go to school
right.
and try to manage friendships, but are still the primary caregiver. COVID was a great example of that.
Yeah.
That the kids were trying to care for their family members
Right.
while they were, in school. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
and there's-
caregiving thing is a crisis
Yeah.
that we have really underestimated. And it's, very socially acceptable to care for your kids, but to go to an employer or to someone else and say, I have to take my mom to the doctor's appointment. People are like,
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
so
Donna!
true.
Again, I'm going to jump across this table and hug Donna again because
Yeah.
I was feeling that my mom didn't live with me full time, but I kind of split custody of her with my brother. But a lot of things would come, to me, and I was starting to struggle at work. This is just maybe 7 or 8 years ago,
right.
and I was in a very demanding job. I had switched to working for a tech company at my advanced age, and I was
Right.
really struggling. And then it was unspoken. There were very kind people there, but it would just be sort of understood. The folks that had to pick up their kid from school was
Mm-hmm.
cool to leave at 4,
Yes.
but if like I went at 12 and came back at 2, it was kind of like, it was, I even looked into family leave at one point,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to do something, but I would love for
Yeah.
people to, employers listening or just
Yes.
coworkers listening, just have some understanding about that. It's hard when you haven't been through it, but
It really
that takes
is.
as much time.
Well, I don't think they, I'm just going to do a shameless plug. Is that all right?
Go for it.
The return on investment from having someone like a care manager help support your employees is for every $1, there's a $4 return on investment because they're not taking FMLA. They're not coming in late and leaving early, because
You're saying
figuring-
offer it as an employee benefit?
yes.
Oh my gosh, I would love. I think that's a fantastic idea, and just so rather than people having to just
Yeah.
hide it and
Yes.
function.
So it would be a benefit for the caregiver?
Yes.
Yes.
Do people do that?
They do.
Wow.
Are you finding that more people are starting to do that? Or
I think it's becoming more, there's an awareness
Mhm.
more and more for,
That's so
especially from a
interesting.
benefit package.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking to a friend of ours we are actually caring for his parents, and so I wanted to pick his brain because he's a very smart man. And we went out to lunch or to dinner, and I said, "This is what we're thinking," and he goes, "You're too early. Culture's not ready for that. You're too
Wow.
early." But culture's changing
Mm-hmm.
as more and more people come into this caregiving role,
Yeah.
especially when they're in leadership.
Yeah. Well, we were
And-
talking about it earlier today, how like you don't understand what someone's going through until you actually go through it yourself.
I
You
say
know?
that all the time.
Yeah,
Did we
like
hit,
she-
hit a nerve?
MB has a really good friend who she was friends with when she was taking care of her mom, and now that friend is taking care of her mom and is coming back to MB.
just
and
said to
saying,
me yesterday, said, I feel so bad that I wasn't there for you more. And I said,
Right.
well, wait a minute. I don't feel like that. And
Yeah.
that's not, but you can't know.
"You don't
Mm-mm.
know until
know.
you know."
You
That's
can't know.
what, going back to the employers, I want to say one thing about that nothing breeds loyalty like feeling like you're taken care of.
For sure.
And so the employers that do offer it to have assistance, they're very loyal because they understand that they're going to be taken care of regardless of what happens.
I would have loved it.
Yeah.
I would have
So
been,
good.
again, it was personal relationships with one manager. I felt like I had some understanding, but it
Yeah.
was, I would have been
Yeah.
really thrilled by that. That would have been
But
really helpful.
to your point with our profession, we were talking earlier about it being such a new profession. That is a challenge, is getting people to understand what we do, because until you've been through it or watched a close friend go through it or watched a loved one go through it, being a caregiver, it doesn't really sink in until you've done it.
So true. Okay, so it's almost become a cliche that it's time to take the car keys away,
That's
right?
like the big one, right?
It's
That's
almost
the big
become
one.
a cliche, but it is a major thing, right? And it's like one of the first big things that families have to have conversations over. So when it comes time to have the conversation, such as like it's time to take the car keys away, what is happening with the aging parent or the aging person and their loved ones in that time?
I would say, I'll just jump in. Then you
Yeah,
can
go for it.
I would say start early.
Mm-hmm.
Start the conversation early. The first thing being, so mom and dad, what would you think? What would make you want to give up your keys? What would have to happen? Because if we get their buy-in early and they're like, well, if I have a bad accident because I wasn't able to,
Yeah.
wasn't
Reacting.
reacting, or, I wrecked my car, or, that, I'm confused about where I'm going. If you all start noticing those things, then we need to talk about me either having a limited range where I can drive, or it's time for me to have the car's keys taken away. I think starting it during the crisis is a bad idea.
Right, because you were just saying,
Difficult.
you can take my keys away after I have a bad accident. You're like, whoa, that's what
Right?
we don't want to happen.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so starting that conversation, partnering with them because they know that they are aging, but but also being able to say, like Jodi did with her, father-in-law,
We put
Yeah.
in things. He has Alzheimer's, and so we put things into place so that he can still have some independence and can still drive. So he has like a radius that he feels comfortable going to, and he stays within that radius. It's 2 miles, and if anything is outside of his Walmart, Jets Pizza, Kroger, Publix, if anything's outside of that, then he'll call and ask for a ride because he will get lost if he goes farther than that.
Right.
So it's kind of like what she's talking about is kind of baby stepping it if you know that that's something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen with everyone, and it's not going to be the same with everyone.
Right.
Everything has to be custom designed for your loved one.
Yeah, that's right. And would love for people listening to give themselves a little grace. Like
Yes.
I have shared before. So my pop, we needed to take the keys away, and my mom had actually asked my brother and I, will you come and help me with this? We need to have this conversation. So we did. It was a big deal. I flew to North Carolina from where I lived in Florida to have this conversation. It was hard at first, very emotional, and then it went well. And then the next week, my mom gave him the keys back.
Oh.
Somebody, my sister-in-law called and said, I think Papa's driving today. I go, what? And then I asked her,
After
Mother,
all that.
Mom, what? And she's like, well, he just kept bugging me. So I kind of undid it. But like to that point, sometimes it doesn't take on the first conversation.
It
is
sure
what I'm saying.
doesn't,
And then
right?
you got to go back after it. Is that right?
That's when you pull the spark plug out.
I have heard of. I had a friend who did that. She did that
Yeah.
because she her and her brother took her mom's car and hid it somewhere.
Yeah.
Mom called the police and said that the car had been stolen. It was
Right.
like they had to go through all
Yeah.
this stuff. Oh my God.
Right.
I had a client once that his family took his car, and he called up the Lincoln dealership and told him he'd pay cash for another car, and they brought him one.
No way.
No joke. And they delivered that car, and it had to be taken back. And
He's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with
Yeah.
your inheritance.
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, we're talking a lot about how my heart went out to my pop. I was I was a daddy's girl, and I was like, oh my God, this must be so hurtful for him, or this is so difficult. But what's happening to the adult children then? I'm picturing that evening when we were having that discussion. And I wasn't as strong as I could have been because it's my dad. Like, so
Yeah.
what's
Right.
happening to the adult children when they're having these conversations? What are they kind of reliving their old roles or
It is a role reversal. I mean, as our parents age, sometimes as the children or caregiver, we move into the role of being the parent to the parent. And I think a lot of them that we've dealt with, they are shell-shocked. They don't quite understand what's happening, and we try to explain and support. But I think the biggest thing to help them understand is sometimes that a little bit of support and help means that they're more independent. It's kind of counterintuitive to think that way, but if you just have a little bit of support, you're going to stay independent longer.
I
Yeah.
think the other thing is that you can also engage with their provider. Kind of give them a heads up before they're going to the next doctor's appointment that we're concerned about driving. Can we talk about this? So it takes some of
Yeah.
the pressure off of the kids to have that
That's
conversation.
a great conversation because then they your parents would be getting that information, from like an authority, like from a
Yes.
Who can
neutral
write it on a
party.
prescription pad and say no more driving, or go take a driving test.
And
Here's
that's
your
the other
Right,
thing
or
that there
yeah.
are people that come do a driving test, and we're like, you pass the driving test, excellent.
How do you connect that? Like that?
There are occupational therapists that actually do it. There's through Vanderbilt. They have a
Wow.
driving
yeah,
test.
Vanderbilt here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like the university or the hospital.
Yes,
or,
there
or
are lots of resources that they can come and do a driving eval. It starts normally with a cognitive test,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. And if they pass the cognitive test, then they take them on a road test.
That is so
That is
interesting.
really
I
interesting.
would have really
Yeah.
liked that.
Yes.
Again, I want to
Yeah.
jump back in my time
But
machine.
what
and-
I'm hearing from you guys that I feel like we hear through, it's a theme through many of our podcast episodes, is that offering your loved one the dignity of agency
Mhm.
goes a long way.
Super
And
important.
Absolutely.
anytime you can bring them in on the conversation in such a way that helps them feel like they have choices
Yeah.
100%.
is really, and that takes starting the conversations early.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're not in a crisis.
And it's learning to compromise. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think learning to start having those conversations with, like, let's talk about home safety.
Mhm.
We're worried that, they're not as safe in their home as they used to be.
Mhm.
But, their feedback to us is, I don't want anybody in my home.
Yep.
I don't want any cameras.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want anybody monitoring me.
I don't need anything.
I don't need anything. I'm just fine. Well, that opens the conversation to compromise. This is how we feel.
Mhm.
This is what we're concerned about. And so how do we compromise on that? And that could be as little as putting a Ring camera on the front door
Mhm.
so that, we can see who's coming in and out, or if you leave and, we just need to be aware. There is also so much new technology that's coming out that is non-intrusive, like the cameras used to be. That our occupational therapist Kim was telling us this last week that there's a new one that it's an app on your phone, and if the phone isn't picked up like within a certain amount of time, it'll alert someone
Mhm. Oh, wow.
because we're all picking up our phones all
Sure.
the time, and so there's just tons of new technology that can allow them to maintain their independence, but still give
Yeah.
the caregivers, like my mother-in-law. She lives with me, and
And how old is she?
she's 86. She'll be 87. My mom lived with me for 6 years before she passed away, and then we just moved my husband's mom into the house in
Oh,
January,
this is new. Yeah.
which was a very big deal because it's just been we have not always had the best relationship, and
Mhm.
so that's a whole
Mhm.
conversation too
Mhm.
about loving in a hard relationship.
For sure.
And
Was she reluctant to make the move? Was she pushing back
I
a bit
think
on
she
that?
was nervous,
Understandably.
understandably. But anyways, so she has moved in. It has gone beautifully because I have a team.
Mhm.
And so I
Mhm.
have an occupational therapist that can come in and set up the house to be beautifully safe and organized for her because we have an occupational therapist on our team that did that. So
Wow.
set up the grab
Oh,
bars
cool.
in the exactly
Yeah.
right place for her. Has the skid map, has a light that comes on underneath her bed when she gets up in the morning, or in the middle of the night, so that there's a light that
All
comes
these
on.
things that I would never think about.
No, me
Yeah.
either.
That's exactly right.
Tremendous. Really.
Tremendous and little.
Little things
Yeah.
that are that huge, make a
Huge,
huge,
Mhm.
but
huge
give
difference.
her that independence to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
And so we needed to get a fall detection. So we had some different systems come in and then settled on this pendant that she wears. And it's been fantastic. And it gives me so much comfort to know that I'm going to be notified, or if I
Mhm.
can't get there, that my husband will be notified, or my daughter.
And she'll wear it.
She wears it
Is it like a piece
religiously.
of jewelry? Does it look like jewelry?
You
or
know,
is it?
it's pretty
Uh-huh.
because it's white and gold.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that
Um,
helps.
yes, right. Because sometimes watches are a very big deal, like the Apple Watch,
Mhm.
and a lot of women don't like that kind of masculine look.
Mhm.
Well, and you
And
have to charge them a lot too. You have to remember to charge them.
right,
Mhm.
and
Or
exactly, this is like every 3 or 4 days, and so whenever she's showering, she plugs it in to keep it charged.
I might ask you for a friend, but we're talking about a couple of these conversations. You want to give people agency or buy-in. I did hit a brick wall sometimes. Where we didn't agree or didn't make progress. I'm fine. No, I don't want to do that. We're not doing that. We're not there yet. What do you do or do you have sort of some What do you think, Jodi? What do you counsel somebody who says, I had the conversation and
Yeah.
They
she's like,
refuse.
I'm not giving up my keys, or
Well,
I'm not wearing the button, or
It's
I'm
because you're the, in air quotes, nagging daughter.
Well, I was hello.
Yeah.
I was definitely the nagging
Yeah,
daughter.
a lot of times we find that when we come in, because we're a neutral party that doesn't really have any skin in the game,
Yes.
and we are their advocate, so they feel like we're on their side because we are. A lot of times they'll listen to us different. When I'm doing intakes, I tell people sometimes, if they call and they're frustrated, they're like, I've told mom 1,000 times we need to do this or do that,
Sure.
and they, she won't listen. I tell them to give us a chance, because it's just like when you have a speeding teenager. You tell them, don't speed,
Yeah.
but until like somebody in authority that knows what they're doing tells them, like maybe a state trooper,
Or a judge.
Yeah, or a judge, yeah. Then they all of a sudden listen, and they're like, oh, okay, let's do that. Let's not speed anymore. And so it's kind of the same with parents. I don't know what the difference is. I'm sure there's some kind of science behind it somewhere, but
The neutral party, the third party,
Yeah.
I think is a huge,
Yeah.
even something like I was nagging my husband to lift weights and work out more, and he's a runner and a walker, but I was like, you gotta lift weights and you gotta stretch and this, nothing. And then I got him a trainer and I backed off. And I stopped, and he does what she told
Yes.
him to do.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
yeah,
It's
it's
awesome.
something about having another person in there that I think a lot of our clients will open up to us a lot more than they open up to their children,
I
which
can see
then
that.
helps us to
Makes
help
sense.
them, right? Because we're kind of a mediator between the two.
So then how long do you think, I mean, I'm asking you this question, like how long do you think families should wait before they find a third party like y'all to step in? But I'm like, I'm thinking like ASAP.
Yeah,
But
so-
when's the
but what's
ideal
the-
time?
yeah.
When's the
It's
ideal-
funny you bring that up, because for years we have been known as the problem solvers, the crisis. I say sometimes we're the calm in the chaos. And a lot of people come to us in crisis, and we're very good at solving problems and thinking outside the box and getting the crisis to calm down. But this year we've been talking about moving upstream and becoming more wellness focused, because it would be so helpful to have a care manager at the first of a diagnosis, or the
Right.
first of, okay, we're getting older and things are starting to change. Let's put a plan in place. A plan doesn't prevent the crisis, but it sure makes it a lot easier when
Right.
it does happen.
Yeah. So do you have, I mean, when you offer your care, do you have different levels of care that you offer based on what's needed? Because if I'm just at the beginning of a diagnosis, or I'm just noticing some things and I want to plan ahead, I may not need you as
Right.
much as I'm going to need you down the road.
Right.
Right.
So is that kind of,
Yeah, is there like
We
an
ebb and
initial
flow with our
consult?
clients.
Okay.
So we do an initial assessment is what we call it. And we go out and we gather all the information, doctors, medications, what does your typical day look like? We ask what matters most to the client, because that's really important. And then we formulate a plan for them. And sometimes that plan could be, hey, we're going to check in with you quarterly. We have clients that we will serve as their healthcare power of attorney, and we just check in with them quarterly. A lot of them are still working, or they're, traveling or whatever. And then we have clients that we recognize they need a lot. And so our recommendations will be a little more frequent. But we ebb and flow with our client. And
Okay.
so as we see things change, or we try to notice the changes even before they realize it's happening. And then we can say, have you thought about this? Or we'd like to recommend this. And it could be an increase in our services to help, prevent that crisis from
Yeah.
happening.
I think it's super important because Jodi talked about it just a second ago. We start our conversations with what matters most to you, because that tells us a lot.
well, I just would like to say that that's a great question to ask in almost like a lot of situations.
Every situation. I think
Right?
it really,
Say that
really.
one more time.
The question is what matters most?
Yeah.
In healthcare, especially, we always have asked, what's the matter? But the question really should be what matters most. And so I asked a couple, he had Parkinson's, she had dementia, and I said, what matters most to you? And he said, I don't care where we are as long as we're together.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I can do that.
Mhm.
Right.
Now I know that now we can partner on that
Mhm.
instead of me creating some solutions or a family creating solutions that don't match what matters most. And then I had another client, and I said to her, as she was sitting in a skilled nursing facility, what matters most to you? And I thought for sure she would say, get me out of here.
Right.
But what she said was, could you help my sister stop worrying? That's what mattered most to her. And so that allowed me to shift to like making sure that her sister was okay so she would stop worrying so she could focus on getting better.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
So we're talking a lot about a third party, or bringing in your services or other third parties. So that sounds like that would be a very effective way to get something accomplished. Now, how does that then affect? Like, I get a third party to come in, I back off a little bit as the naggy daughter.
Mm-hmm.
How does that impact my relationship with my mom? Like, does that make it better? Does that
Yeah, you get to
make
go
me
back to being a daughter. You get to go back to
There you
being
go.
a daughter. That's a big part of what we do, is to help families be able to cope with what's going on and be able for the children to become children again and just visit instead of going with a to-do list or a task list, or, okay, we have to go to this doctor's appointment. Now I have to go because I got to get my own children from school or whatever the case may be. I had a daughter that several years ago, her dad had Parkinson's and she was an only child, and she was making all these big decisions and trying to help him and figure everything out on her own. And she hired us, and this is the best compliment I've ever gotten. She said, "You're better than any Prozac I've ever taken." I've never forgotten that, because I stopped dead in my tracks and just started laughing. She said, "I'm serious," because it brought calm and a peace of mind to her to even just have somebody to bounce ideas off of that knew and understood what she was going through.
Sometimes people just need to be coached,
Yeah.
And that's kind of also
Yeah, maybe just shift a little. Like
Right.
your heart's in the right
Yeah.
place. You're doing
Yeah.
all these great things,
Right.
but maybe
Yes.
and it's just so interesting. You say that about that someone could become a daughter again.
Mhm.
Susie has shared that on this very podcast about that when you tell.
Well, I just shared that when I resisted, moving my mom into a senior living community until the very end of her life. And that last year that she was in a really lovely place, I finally felt like I could be a daughter again, because the place felt secure to me. I didn't feel like I had to think about, okay, what am I going to do then at the next level of care? Like, they were giving her everything she
Or monitor
needed.
stuff. You weren't like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
and
worrying
I
about
could
meds.
just
I could
show up and
Mhm.
I could bring her the things that she likes, but I mean, I didn't have to do any of the hands-on care. I didn't have to worry about, certain appointments because they were right there,
Right.
So it was really a
then you could
gift.
just be, you could hang out,
Yeah.
play. Like,
Yeah.
well, again, asking for a friend. Like if you have a tough conversation and you're trying to navigate something that either for your loved one's safety or whatever that may be, and there's a rift, there's a fight or a rift. Have you dealt with some families that have had that? Like, they're like, we just had a big conversation, tried to take dad's keys away, now he's not speaking to me. Have you come in at different stages like that into
Yeah.
with some
I
families?
mean, we've had everything from what you just described to having families where the two sisters won't speak to each other, won't be in the same room, and we have to, I mean,
how do you do it? I navigate that.
you play mediator. I mean, that's a lot of what we do is play mediator. And sometimes it takes a person like us to come in and have those hard conversations because we are not emotionally connected to the conversation. And so when we're having the conversation, we can try to point out the perspectives of each side to them, and, hopefully they'll come to an agreement. With the two daughters, we would just call one, hang up, call the other, hang up, call the other back, and relay information and try to get each other on the same page.
I had a family that the father was actively dying and he wanted to go home, but the family did not feel capable of of taking him home, and there was a lot of conversations between the kids, and then there was, and so
Mm.
she was actually a friend of mine, and so she called and she said, "Would you come mediate this for us?" And
Wow,
so
that's so interesting.
I know, and so I sat down and I had them all there. I had the wife and all the kids, and a very smart friend of mine told us about this tool that you can use that basically, let's pretend your dad is sitting right here.
Hmm.
And the question to him is what would you like to have happen? And so I said, I'm going to go around the room and
Mhm.
everybody needs to tell me what you think your dad would want in this situation. So I started with the wife and she said he'd want to go home. And the daughter said he'd want to go home, all around the room. And I'm like, you guys have your answer. You can take him home.
Mhm.
That we have the ability to
Hmm.
do that.
Mhm.
And so, and they were like, you're right. We got to take him home. He had been born and raised in that house.
Wow.
It was the only home he had ever known. And I'm
Wow.
like, we can help you navigate this so that he can be at home and you all can and be family and around him. And he ended up dying at home.
Wow, what a
think
victory.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too it's resetting expectations because I think sometimes just thinking about my own family, I want the best for them, but sometimes the best does not equal or align with what they want, like what she's saying. And sometimes it's our job to just go in and reset those expectations because a lot of times that comes from fear. And so to help children or caregivers of loved ones to understand that if we try it this way, things may not fall apart. It may be the best thing ever to help them let go of, their expectations and their perception of what needs to happen because that's not always the right option.
So I'm listening to you guys talking about all this and wishing that I had, you know, something like this available to me when I was taking care of my mom. And at the same time, I know myself and I would think to myself, this is probably really expensive and I don't think I would be able to afford having somebody like this. So I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to do all the things myself. What would be can you talk about maybe some of those barriers for people that the things that might prevent them from reaching out to you, knowing even what you offer?
Yeah, I think what I tell people a lot of times is we are not cheap, but we
Mhm.
are worth every penny. And sometimes we can help people to be able to afford us because they may have a specific project or task.
Mhm.
They may have a relative that's willing to pay for it. They may need us for a temporary period of time to just get over the hump. They may need to use us as a consultant
Mhm.
versus doing everything. So, that could be like a loved one that just needs to run ideas by. They can do all of the things that need to be done, and that'll save them money because it doesn't take as much time to just pick our brain for a little
Right.
bit. Yeah. There are some long-term care insurance companies that cover what we do. And so we ask every client, do you have long-term care insurance? And we will, for free, review their policy and let them know what it covers and all the ins and outs and details of that.
Mhm.
But, I feel like for the most part, um, people want what they want, right? Like
Yeah.
just like if you need to get healthy, you're going to make time to exercise. People have traditionally just been able to kind of figure it out.
Mhm.
We can put people on budgets. We don't have any kind of minimum. We're super flexible with saying, if you just want to be seen once every other month or whatever it is that you want, we'll do that.
Yeah.
We just try to work with them. If we absolutely have someone that cannot afford us, there are companies in Nashville that are based off of your income, and we'll connect them with them and
Oh,
get
that's
them
great.
started. Yeah.
That's great.
They
Well,
have
we
that in
always
other
do.
states too, ladies?
Mhm.
Do they have that?
There is, if you
Awesome.
are listening to this across the United States, you can actually get on Aging Life Care Association,
Mhm.
Oh.
which is our
Governing body,
Oh,
whatever
governing
okay.
you want.
Okay.
body
Yeah.
Aging Life Care
care
Association.
association.
Okay.
Mhm.
Put in your zip code, and you can see if there are care managers around you.
I just want to say thank you for walking us through this.
Yeah.
I was kind of on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Oh,
It's
lovely to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And congratulations to you all for loving your families so well. Because I don't think that's the other thing is I don't think we let the caregivers know what value they are bringing and how much they're appreciated because they're kind of the unsung hero, the silent group in the crowd. But I always tell them what a good job they're doing and that it is
It goes a long way to hear that.
well, y'all out there are doing a great job.
Thank you
You're
so
so
much.
welcome.
Thanks for having
being
us.
with us.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Great conversation.
The thing that stood out to me the most about this conversation was that question that Donna says she asks frequently, what matters most to you? And to be able to ask that of everyone involved in the conversation to bring out the values of the family and the caregiving experience.
Oh my gosh, it really just directs your next move. It was a light bulb moment and a phrase I think we're going to remember
I think so.
all the time because the most important thing to me, you're having tough conversations, but how do you balance that, the difficulty of having that conversation with keeping somebody safe?
Yeah.
And giving them agency. We talk over and over again about taking the keys away from my family talks about this, and we couldn't just blow it off. We couldn't just, it wasn't safe for him to have that. It wasn't about power or I want to be right. It was, this isn't safe anymore, so I can't avoid this just because it's a tough conversation.
Right. So listeners, if you've had to navigate one of these conversations, or if you're about to, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
Yeah, please text us and tell us your story or ask a question to 833-473-9898.
And if this episode has helped, subscribe and leave a review so others can find us. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for being here. See you next time.
The views and opinions shared in this episode are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Brookdale Senior Living. This content is for informational purposes only and isn't intended as financial or medical advice or an endorsement of any position or product discussed. Always talk to a qualified professional before making decisions about your health, finances, or the care or finances of a loved one based on something you've heard in this program. Brookdale is not responsible for the accuracy or completeness of the information shared.